everybody, Tracy Brown here. And I thought I would do a little bit of a bonus. I hadn't initially planned to put this in here because I didn't want to overcomplicate things, but I think it's actually really important to talk about perfectionism and food choices, eating, rules, all kinds of things. And so if you're listening to this, you probably have had or still have some food rules around when you should eat. Let's say I can't eat past 7 p.m. I know I had that one. Or, I can't eat carbohydrates at lunch and dinner. I can have a little bit of breakfast. That's when I had to. And so we all have our food rules. They all have, not a lot of, I can't, if you can show me one of your, what you feel like it's like a valid scientific and body nourishing rule you have, let me know. I'm not counting people who have celiac. I'm not counting people who are, maybe diabetic, and it does matter their meal mix around carbs, protein, and fat, and meals, that kind of thing. I'm not counting that. And even that, celiac, yeah, there's some rules, like don't eat gluten. You'll feel sick, you will. If you have diabetes, though, there's not really any rules about what the right diet or carbohydrate mix for one person is, because we're all humans. We're all different. We all have, your needs for carbohydrates are going to vary based on your stress levels and your hormone cycle and your activity level and your age and your all kinds of parameters. So you can't really, there's not really one right way to do it. It's very intuitive. You have to listen, you have to experiment, you have to try. And so I think that's what makes it so hard. And I'm talking about the most sensitive of us in terms of like food sensitivities, let's say. The average person who can probably eat and digest just about anything, which I do think that a well-nourished body can do that. Most people who have a lot, again, this is a side note, but most people who have a lot of functional gut things have usually had a lot of stress in their lives. And sometimes it predates the disordered eating or the dieting, but a lot of times it's caused by, years of eating disorder behaviors. And for most people, I think that can be healed as a renourishment happens, as good gut health. Your gut is just like our outside muscles. I mean, it needs action and work to be strong. So if you're not eating enough and you're malnourished, whether you're low weight, medium weight, larger weight, if you're not eating enough, your body doesn't have a good reason to have like good, I'm using this movement like this good, peristalsis and, the action of your gut to digest your food. So it needs food and it needs enough food to work properly. So that's one thing I want you to think about when you have all these food rules, is that if you're malnourishing yourself in calories or in like just good overall enough good variety of food and meal mix, then your gut is probably not going to work properly. Okay. And that's just very generic advice there. If you're listening to this and you have some kind of other gut health issue, then that will probably be in a different course, and or we need to work individually together so we can get that straightened out as quickly as possible. Okay. So back to the perfectionism. Perfectionism is a mental tool that we use to try to protect ourselves. That's all it is. It's not like a fault. It's not a flaw. And I know it's hard because most of us, me included, have been shamed for like, being particular about things, or having to have things a certain way, or we're anxious, we're not okay, don't feel settled. And perfectionism is just an outward manifestation of fear. And underneath that, a lot of times, there's fear of getting in trouble, not doing things right, pleasing people. But, sometimes combined with that, there's a lot of underlying rage or a lot of sadness or shame that we're using this perfectionism with like food or the way our bodies look, or food rituals. We're using all that as a way to try to contain our fear, our shame, our anger. And they can be layered on top of each other. What comes first is different for each person. But there's this layer of protection around that. And so I know that it's hard to, let's say, if you if you don't eat past 7 p.m. to like do that, but I encourage you to do it, because our bodies run on a 24-hour rolling average. So it doesn't really matter if you eat late, because if you're hungry and you need to, or you need to calorically to do it, your body needs that. So we have to, that's our job, is to honor body time. And if you're not at the place where you're totally in tune with your hunger fullness signals yet, that's okay. If you're eating more mechanically, I challenge you to break your rules, and even break the little ones first. So if you have a rule of like, I don't eat things with added sugar, I encourage you to pick something and do it, and do it in a way that feels safe to you, and get some feedback, you know. And I'm not saying that every food you eat you're going to like, and I'm not saying that every food you eat is going to feel good. I mean, a lot of my clients, I had one client in particular, she was re-eating, and this could be your case no matter what your body size is. If anybody would accuse me of anything, it's actually being biased more towards against thinness than not, because I just see so much fat prejudice and bias out there that you know, I'm very sensitive to, even though I'm in a smaller body, I'm very sensitive to the experiences of people who aren't in smaller bodies, just because those are so underrepresented as struggling with food problems. So when I talk about being undernourished, I'm talking to everybody, not just somebody in smaller bodies. And some people who are in medium and whatever that means, and larger, whatever you define that as, in your parameters, people of all shapes and sizes are malnourished. So even if you might need to gain weight, even if you're medium sized and maybe even larger size, you're going to gain some weight because you need to heal that deprivation. Okay. So anyway, break your rules, because the rules are just a they're a tool you've used to the best of your ability to try to manage um, fears about something underneath, your shame, your anger. And so I encourage you to, if you're going to use perfectionism, use it towards your recovery, not in a negative way, like I'm going to be perfect with my meal plan, or I'm going to turn my intuitive eating and I'm perfect with it. Don't do that. Use your perfectionism for life. Use your perfectionism to, you know, if you're doing a meal plan right now, to get every component in and don't skim off the edges. You know, if you're on a meal plan and you're trying to get all your food groups in and do like a dessert challenge, you know, once a day or 3 times a week or whatever, use it to follow through with that. If you're doing intuitive eating right now and you've got a lot of perfectionism and you're like, oh, I can only stop at a 7, let yourself even eat just a little bit more. Just because you hear that thought. Every time you have a thought of like, I got to do it a certain way or do it right, I need you to kind of do the opposite and challenge it. Not out of reaction, but out of, wait a minute, what is this about? And who says I have to do it this way? You know, always use the phrases, who says, then what will happen, how come, and you'll get a little bit more deep into the answer about what it is that this perfectionism, how you're trying to use it to help you stay safe, to help serve you, and recognize how little it does serve you. So it's easy to don't perfectionism to be like, I'm going to be doggedly determined about figuring out what every single, again, don't drive yourself crazy about this. I want you to live your life, but use it as a way of like, you know, every time I have a food or body thought that isn't life enhancing and isn't setting me free, I'm going to be doggedly determined, you know, what's the function of this? How come I need this right now? And if you do it, so be it. That's okay. Compassion, love, non-judgment. Give that to yourself. You need it. You deserve it. You know, give yourself more compassion than you think that you deserve. All right. So I hope this video was helpful. And until next video and next sequence of handouts and audios and all that good stuff, until next time, take care.